bringing the stories of people just like us directly into your home and learning more about them. This is Trent Speaks. And yes, it is Trent Speaks, yet another week on the podcast. Welcome in, everyone. I hope you had an excellent 4th of July. I hope you were safe, saw some good fireworks, and that everything was splendid and you were able to spend it with the people you love and the people that you cherish. How do you transition there if you're not looking at your notes? I feel like I don't really have this flow this week of how we're going to jump into the podcast. I will say, though, I just got a brand new Trent Speaks hat. I've been waiting for it for about 3 or 4 weeks now. Shout out to Holtz Leather Company. I have no idea who they are or where they are. Oh, 1214 Meridian Street, Suite D, Huntsville, Alabama. In case you're curious where they are. I can give you their phone number and their website too. So I just returned back from a 2-week vacation and received this hat. And within there, obviously, they put some of their own literature and stuff in there. And I opened it up and it actually says Our Story. There's a tiny little section for Our Story. And I think it's important to bring that up on this podcast because I always talk about how people have a story. Everyone has their own story, but you never really think that companies also have their own story of how they got started and the struggles that they may have gone through. And so I just want to quick read this little snippet from Holtz Leather on what they say their story is, because I think this is powerful and I think there's something we can take away from it. So here it is. At Holtz Leather, we understand tough times. After losing a business, our home, and nearly being homeless, in that lowest of low, Holtz Leather was born. The scars, bug bites, or stretch marks found on a hide are not defects. They are stories. Stories of good times and of tough times. They are the stories we all share. We do not forget about those times because through those tough times, we got to where we are now. Those scars and marks are beautiful reminders of where we have been, and without them, we would not be where we are today. So I figure let's just jump right into the story of Sydney, this week's guest, where her and we talked about a couple different things. We talked about the diet that she's currently experienced great pride and joy with, seeing great results. We also talked about her take and what is the struggle of parenting in today's world, and even talked about her own business. So, Sydney, why don't you talk to me? I know that you are a big poster on Facebook of your weight loss journey that you've been on. Why don't you kind of talk to me about that, really?
So the weight loss journey that I've been on, I have started about a year ago now, and it's called the ketogenic diet, and people call it keto for short. So pretty much what it is a low-carb diet, and you stay under 20 carbs a day. But the tricky part, I guess you want to say, is it's moderate protein and high fat, and then the low carbs. So everybody kind of gets freaked out when they hear the whole high fat thing. But the main reason or how this all started was it was actually for people that had epilepsy. So they started eating this way of living and dieting this way, and it cured like them having seizures, and now it's linked to like curing diabetes and all different stuff like that. So it's not just for weight loss; it has a lot of like medical benefits for it too.
What
sorry. What?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, what is it that got you onto this diet, or how did you come about it, and what made you want to kind of jump onto this?
My friend Evie on Facebook, I was trying just a normal diet, like the chicken and fish and fruit and vegetables and all that, and I posted a picture of a whole bunch of fruit, and she said it's funny because you're not supposed to be having that, or like you could drop weight faster if you do it this way. And at first I kind of just blew her off because I was like, what do you mean? Like, it's fruit. Of course fruit's good for you. And then I was like, okay, like I messaged her and I was like, well, what do you mean? So she started sending me all these different links and stuff to the keto diet. And the more I kind of researched it, like I researched it for probably like a month or so before I started. And then I just had my second daughter, so she was only a couple of weeks old. So I wanted to talk to my doctors to make sure that with nursing it was something I could do and whatnot. But I came kind of to the conclusion that it doesn't matter if it's sugars from fruit or sugars from candy or meat or whatever. It all is still sugar, and it spikes your insulin. So you're just putting your body into ketosis, which is the way that it's meant to function, like back in the cave days. So she was the one that kind of introduced me a little bit, and then I started getting into it and then asking my doctors about it. And a lot of my doctors weren't completely aware about it because it is a newer kind of a fad diet going on. But now that I've been doing it a year, all of my doctors now are on board with it, and they're recommending it to other people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And when I first started, like I said, I have 2 kids. I have a almost 4-year-old, and then my youngest one just turned 1. So when I first started, it was mainly just to help get rid of baby weight and to start feeling better and stuff and get back to postpartum things. But now that it's going, I mean, it's a complete lifestyle change. Like, my family eats it and my kids and all that. I mean, I don't limit their fruit, obviously. The kids are nothing like that. But, I mean, we just cut out processed foods and, like Little Debbie snacks, like all the quick and easy things, and then changed it over to real food, I guess you want to say.
See, that's why I could never do it. I mean, I've cut out a lot of processed food, but some of that stuff, I'm too picky of a eater, I think, to be able to go on something like that.
Right. Well, and everybody like when you think of a diet, you think of like limiting everything. Obviously, it's like no bread, no like pasta, no potatoes, stuff like that. But I mean, like a typical day of foods, like you wake up and you can have like eggs and bacon for breakfast. And then for snack, have like pickle cream cheese roll-ups. And then for lunch, you can have a taco salad. And then like another snack, you can have string cheese. And then for dinner, it's usually some type of a protein. So you can do like steak or hamburger. And then like an approved keto vegetable, which would be like cauliflower or broccoli, asparagus. And so, I mean, like, you're eating real food. It's not like you're really looking at portion size or, like, only eating, like, lean, like, cuts of meat and stuff either.
So, obviously, I don't know a whole lot about this from what you're teaching me right now. Is this something that is, so, like, being vegan or vegetarian, is this something that's lifelong, or is it just kind of something that's, I guess, quote-unquote short term, depending on however short or long term you want it to be?
It kind of just depends on how you want to go about it. So, you know how everybody has this saying, like, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change?
Yeah.
So with you doing this and putting your body in ketosis and having it function how it's like designed to do, when I have like a cheat day or like when I am at a birthday party or something and I have like a piece of cake and ice cream, then like, I mean, I don't feel good. Like I'll get like a stomach ache and a headache and stuff like that because my body's not used to that sugar anymore. So it's not even something that you want to go back and start eating bad about because you get like physically sick. So, and it kind of, so once you reach your maintenance, so like say your goal is to lose 50 pounds and you reach that, you slowly start upping your carbs again. Like week by week, you'll see like, okay, well, I can have 30 and my body still reacts to it. I can have 40. So say for you, it's 60 carbs or whatever under is what you have to stay under to maintain your weight. Then you know like your threshold of what you can and cannot add back in. And then if you start gaining weight, then you know your body cannot handle that many carbs.
Oh, well, that makes sense. I'm sure it's not as complicated once you start to figure it all out and get on it. And
my favorite part about all of it is like I said, I have the 2 young kids, so there's so much things going on Facebook about like different pills and shakes and wraps and all sorts of things. And this is none of that. Like there's no special things you have to buy. It's not a big cost thing. You literally just go to the grocery store, buy the food like you would for your family, and then you come home and cook it. So it's, in a way, I mean, yeah, you're buying, like, more real foods, which is more expensive versus, like, cheap Little Debbie snacks. But in the long term or whatever, you're not spending $200 a month on shakes or something either.
So I know you said your kids are on this and that your family has done it. Is your husband on it as well?
Yep, he has kind of gone off and on with it. So he is an accountant. So during tax season, he works crazy amount of hours. So, I mean, it was kind of like a survival thing. Like, there's pizza, he was going to eat it. But, I mean, he definitely has made better choices. Like, he's a big pop drinker, so obviously pop isn't good for you no matter what diet you're doing. So he's definitely cut back on that, and there's little tricks to, like, coffee and stuff. Like, so it's called bulletproof coffee, and besides putting creamer and sugar and all that in it, you put grass-fed butter, like a scoop of butter in it, and then you can add a little bit of flavoring to it. But the whole thing of it is it makes you full because of the fat content, and then it's like a cream, like it's a creamy taste to it, like butter has a creamy taste. So it's not really that bad either, but it's like it replaces that as a meal, and you don't even think about it because you're just sipping your coffee.
That's interesting. I'm not a coffee drinker, nor do I think I will ever be, but that sounds good.
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it's weird. Like I said in the beginning, that most people, when you think of like high fat, you think of like, oh, how is this going to be good for you? But I got, from being pregnant, and then like when I started this diet, I got a blood panel done. So I have all of my sugars and all that stuff or whatever, and then I have continued to get it done every like 3 months or so, and across the board, every like cholesterol, everything has completely improved by eating this way.
Well, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, and you look great. Thanks. You're doing great. Thanks. So, you've mentioned a couple of times that you have 2 daughters. Kind of talk to me. I know that there are some parents that listen to the podcast, whether they're new parents or upcoming parents, or they've been parents for a while. What do you see as the struggle of parenting? What do you think is great about parenting? And kind of what's your take?
What's your deal? The struggle of parenting, I think, in now day of age is Facebook and social media is such a big deal that everybody compares each other's stuff. Like, I mean, one person will post a dinner or whatever, and then the next person will post like macaroni and cheese and hot dogs, and that second mom's like, oh, what do you mean you're just feeding your kid that crap food? So I think that is like the biggest struggle, is you're constantly comparing yourself to other parents. But I think when you dial back from social media a little bit, and especially, I mean, nothing against dads, but especially moms, it's like, you know your kids the best that you know them. So you know that some days it's not worth the fight to sit there and shove vegetables and stuff in their face. And it might just be easier to get out the door with a granola bar so you can get on with your day and have a good day. So I think like picking your battles or whatever is definitely important, especially when they're little.
You know, it's oh, sorry. I was just going to say, it's interesting you bring up social media. This is actually a conversation I had with some coworkers yesterday in a meeting, at the end of a meeting, of course, that, you know, even you were talking about how with kids and saying, oh, I gave my kid this and there's that. Oh, well, should you have done that? I think that's even true of us adults, that social media was there to get people connected and to help them stay connected and involved with one another. But it's become this platform where I think people are comparing each other to other people a lot more. And so it's almost become more of a negative thing in terms of what it was originally built for.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree.
So I don't know, it was just interesting. The fact that you brought it up with kids, I think that's something that now it's inevitable that it's going to be a lifelong thing for people. Whereas when we were kids and we were a lot tinier, we didn't have the social media necessarily that we grew up with right away to have that same impact.
Yeah, and there's so many, like with like breastfeeding versus formula, or like vaccines versus not getting vaccines and stuff. I mean, there's so many big hot topics or whatever that parents are so passionate about, and it's cool to see so many people like so passionate about a lot of the stuff, but a lot of people don't do their research either. Like, they're just blurting out all these things, and half the facts that they think are right are wrong. So I mean, that obviously stirs more of the pot or whatever too, when you have people like attacking each other's beliefs.
Yeah, especially with fake news and never really knowing what's true and what's not true these days. It's so hard to decipher some of that.
Yep.
I guess, what advice would you have for parents, whether it's upcoming parents or current parents? What advice would you have for them?
Let's see. I guess it would be like never say never. Like, I had this whole plan that I was going to do and stuff, and I was going to like teach her sign language, and I was going to do this or whatever. And then, like I said, like life happens, you get busy, and just because you didn't necessarily do every single detail that you thought you were going to do doesn't mean that you're a bad mom or a bad parent. And you kind of just have to give yourself like a pat on the back, because taking care of a newborn baby, especially, it doesn't matter if you're formula feeding or breastfeeding, but constantly, like, you're feeding and changing, and then everybody's like, okay, do your chores while they're sleeping. But when they're sleeping, it's like, I just want to sit down a second and breathe. Like, I need a moment to, like, collect my thoughts and stuff. And then while you have a baby attached to your hip, then you're trying to do the dishes and get dinner ready and then sweep the floors. And then a couple years later, you add in another baby to that. So it's just double everything. So I think that my biggest advice would just be kind of to count your small victories throughout the day and know that overall, like, the big picture, that you're doing a good job, and stop focusing on every single little day and just, breathe and let your kids live and be kids.
I'm sure parenting is obviously a lot of work. What is it? And it takes up a lot of your time, obviously, but what is it that you like to do for fun? What do you do to de-stress and just to kind of get out and do whatever?
I don't do that a lot, but I do my hair, Bombshell Styles by Sydney. I'm a traveling bridal hairstylist, so that's kind of my hobby, to get out of the house a little bit on the weekends. Then my husband watches the kids, and then I just kind of have a couple hours, whatever, to go. Even though I'm working, it's still something that I enjoy, so it's just a nice little break. And then I definitely think that when the kids go to sleep or whatever, just Netflix or watch, like, taking a bubble bath or something, just unwinding from the day without having kids say your name 100 times in a 2-minute span is always nice.
What are you watching on Netflix right now?
I probably shouldn't, but Shameless.
Okay.
It's not the most appropriate, but that's okay.
Great show.
Yeah.
How far are you?
I really don't know. I was when Fiona bought the laundromat.
Okay.
I don't know what season it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I did. Yep. And I'm through the Netflix portion. I actually just saw an article the other day that season 8 will be out on Netflix at the end of July.
I saw that a minute ago. I need to catch up then before it gets on there.
or you'll be able to just watch another season right away and go right into it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to butcher it, so I'm going to ask it before I ask my next question. Remind me of the name of its Bombshell... What for
Styles.
Your Bombshell Styles? Okay.
Yep.
So talk to me about how you got into that. I know that is it only weddings that you typically do hair for?
Nope, I do for all special events. So proms, dances, like charity events, even just like family pictures that like people want to get their hair styled for.
Okay, so how does one get into hairstyling? Like, what is it that made you say one day, I think that I want to do this as a business and help people out?
My older sister went to cosmetology school, and I always kind of just watched her do hair, and then she would always do my hair for proms and all that stuff. So that's what kind of really got me interested in it, because I just was infatuated with the fact that she could do all these cool braids and whatever. And in high school, like for volleyball and soccer, like I would always braid the girls' hair and stuff before our games or on the bus on the way to the games. But I never really thought too much of it. And then I did one of my friend's hair for prom, and her sister was getting married. So she saw her hairstyle, and I was doing it all. And she was like, oh, you should do my wedding this summer. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, that is way too much pressure. And I was like, it's one thing to do some little, like, 17-year-old girl for, like, prom or something, but, like, your wedding is a big deal. And she was like, no, like, it's fine. It's a laid-back wedding. Like, just try it. It's not a big deal if it doesn't turn out perfect. So I did it, and it turned out great, and I did her whole wedding party. And then a lady that was at her service or whatever, she saw her hair and asked who did it, and then it kind of just trickled from there. But it's just a hobby I picked up on. Like, I never went to school for it or anything like that, and I just kind of kept going with it. Like, the more I wanted to learn, I would go on YouTube or watch other people do stuff. And then about a year or so into it, I went to a class in Chicago. Her name is Lottie. She's a huge, like, teacher instructor person in Chicago, and she does specific like weddings and stuff. So I went for like a private class on her or whatever to get like my certification in bridal hairstyling, which that taught me a lot of things that I didn't know, because just like I said, I didn't go to school, so it's kind of just my own knowledge. So it was cool to get like a hands-on teaching of ways that somebody else does something.
So how far out are you booked for whether it be weddings or proms or anything right now?
The end of 2019, and I have one in January of 2020.
Oh my gosh, good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it started out just doing like here and there weddings or so, and then now I'm at about 60 a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
it's fun though. It's awesome.
How can people find, I'm going to butcher it, bombshell styles?
Styles, yep.
I got it. Oh, perfect.
Good job. I have a Facebook page. If you just type in Bombshell Styles by Sydney, it pops up, and there's like hundreds of pictures, and you can read reviews there's like 50-something reviews from all different brides and proms and all that stuff. And then I have the same thing on Instagram, and then just my personal page. I share a lot of things as well.
If I were to grow my hair back out, would you do my hair?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny. So I do, I haven't really done geyser so much. I've put a little gel in or something simple. But the past, 2 or 3 months, I've done, a dozen guys' hair. And
oh, my goodness.
I never thought that I would do it. For weddings, so I would go there and, the groomsmen or something had, wilder hair. So they would want me, straighten it and style it. Or, I've done a couple, man buns and stuff. But it's just funny because that's not really, my thing. I never thought it was my thing, but now it keeps happening. So it's okay, well, maybe I can do both.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Sydney, so what is it that, whether it's something that you've said so far or maybe it's just something else that you've kind of thought of today, what is it you want people to learn or kind of take away from your story?
I guess I would say my biggest thing with my weight loss journey is from the beginning, it's always just been about finding happiness within yourself, because it's cheesy, but you can't love anybody else unless you love yourself. Mm-hmm. So all my little hashtags and stuff that I do is self-love and self-journey, because it's about me. It's not about my husband or how the world perceives me or how many likes or comments or whatever I get on Facebook. It's truly how I feel about myself. And I am down 104 pounds now throughout the last 11 and a half months. But in my mind, it didn't start clicking until about 80 pounds or so. Oh, hey, I'm doing this. I'm actually losing weight. And which was crazy because, everybody around you can see it and they tell you how great you look or whatever. But until you feel it, then it doesn't matter too much. So I guess my biggest thing or whatever that I would take away is whatever you're doing, whether it be school or work or kids or marriage or anything, make sure you're doing it for yourself and to make yourself happy, because in turn that will make everybody around you happy.
I don't think anyone else could have said it better.
Yeah, that was an award speech.
Unfortunately, there are no awards to be given out, but if there were, right. You would get it.
Gold medal.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sydney, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Sydney talked about being yourself. That's what she wanted to end on, and that's what she wanted all of you to take away. And so I asked Sydney earlier this week if I could share a post that she had put on Facebook at the end of last week, and she had said, "Yeah, go ahead." And I think this really it wraps up what Sydney said, but it also strongly emphasizes that she is someone who is practicing what she's preaching in terms of making sure that you yourself are the one that's happy. Don't care what other people think or if they're happy. And this is what she writes. 1 year keto anniversary and a grand total of 110 pounds lost. This past year has been the hardest year of my life. Dealing with postpartum depression, anxiety, adjusting to being a mom of 2, the struggles of being a stay-at-home mom, new jobs, growing my hair business, and overall just trying to find myself. Every time I have posted pictures of my weight loss journey, it has ended with #self-love, #self-journey, and #BeYoutiful. To some, it may just be hashtags, but there is so much more behind it than that. I have learned that you cannot love anybody else unless you love yourself through and through. This past year, I chose to put myself first, which is a hard thing to do as a mother, but the saying, "you can't pour from an empty cup," is so true. I needed to find myself and find my own happiness this past year in order to be the mom I know I am. And my absolute favorite part about all of this is even at my heaviest, I was still confident and didn't let my weight dictate my life. I am so much more than just a number on the scale, and no one should have their life controlled by that. So cheers to being a happier, healthier me. Can't wait to see what the next year will bring. And then she put this quote at the bottom, don't do it because you hate your body. Do it because you love it. Gosh, I honestly think that is so great. So again, thank you to Sydney for coming on and sharing her story about her journey on this keto diet and everything else that she was able to share and pass along to us today. Greatly appreciated, not only by me, but I'm sure by listeners as well, like yourself. Hey, I just want I want to touch on a couple things. You can hear I don't have my pop filter mic on today. If you can't hear it, well, I'll tell you what, I can hear it. If you didn't get a chance to listen, over the past 2 weeks while I was back home in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, I had the amazing opportunity to be on with two of my, I guess you could call them, podcasting and radio personality idols. And that would be Stu McAllister, who I've talked about before on this podcast. He is he hosts the Elemento P. It's the Elemento podcast. So make sure you give him a listen on SoundCloud. I did repost that one on my SoundCloud page. I also talked to Eric Zane from 107.3 WBBL in the Grand Rapids area. He's on air from 6 a.m. until 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Give him a listen. He also does a sudden death podcast, and I was on that sudden death podcast after the on-air portion last week. Again, both of those are posted on the Facebook page, so give those a check. Search Trent Speaks on Facebook, you will give them a find. One thing that I thought about, actually, I had a long drive back from Toronto, Canada this weekend. I was there for a bachelor party. Long drive back from there all the way to my wife's down in Chicago. And one thing I actually kept thinking about was how Zane had asked about how I bring up occupation with people. And as I started to think more and more, because I originally said, well, it's not something I always bring up. But as I thought more and more about it, it really just gets brought up without me thinking about bringing it up, because I'm like, well, how did you get to X? How did you get from A to X of where you are now? So I just thought that was kind of funny. The more I thought about it, I guess I do bring up occupation a little bit more than I expect to. But it's, again, all part of people's stories, all part of what they want to share, and all part of how they've gotten from however far back they want to go to where they are now. So again, make sure you give the podcast, the Elemento podcast, and the Eric Zane Show Sudden Death podcast to listen. Once again, they're both on the Facebook page, Trent Speaks. You can find me on Instagram at Trent Speaks, or you can always shoot me an email, trentspeaks@gmail.com, if you have any questions or would like to share your story. I'm thinking maybe we'll do a Facebook Live again in the next couple of weeks here, so stay tuned for the announcement on that, and I will give you a date next week. I'll give you a date next week and let you know when the next Trent Speaks Live podcast will air. All right, folks, that's all I have for you this week. Have a fantastic week. To reiterate, Sydney, get out there, be yourself, stop caring about what other people think. It really doesn't matter, because in the end, your happiness is the only thing that matters in life. Peace and blessings, everyone.